Hey, hey, welcome back. This is Pages and Perspectives, episode 2. My name's Navi, and thank you for listening. So, I don't want to seem scripted because my first video, I did use ChatGPT so I could make a good intro. But the rest should be natural and flowing, so I don't want you guys to think that everything's going to be scripted. So, I wanted to get into who I am. A lot of people see me do stuff online, like social media and YouTube channels and stuff. But do you know me? Do you know where I'm from? Do you know how I grew up? Do you know why I think and do what I do? And do you know how I overcame stuff to get where I'm at? I don't think so. A lot of people may claim they know, even family, but I didn't tell family everything, and family didn't even see everything. So this is an opportunity for everyone to learn a little bit more about me, friends and family. So to get started, I wanted to talk about where I'm from. So I grew up in Florida, but I'm from Boston. I was born in Boston City Hospital in Boston, Massachusetts. I lived in Dorchester for about 3 years. And then when I was 3 years old, my dad drove me down to Florida to live with his parents. And then he went back to Boston, where my mom was at, because they had to finish school and they were working. My parents had me really young. They had me at like 21. They were both 21. And I, when I was 21, I can kind of understand how hard that was to have a kid and try to have a life, as in build your career and finish your education. Because I had Nathan when I was 24, 25. So I had already passed that level of trying to figure out what my career was and making money. So for my parents to have me young, and I was the only one for like 7 years, was a big deal because I stayed with my grandparents by myself, grew up with them, did fun things with them. They took me to Disney like all the time. I was so spoiled. I had a Barbie Jeep. I had every toy you could think of, every Barbie you could think of. I think I was well taken care of in a sense. So, drive me down to Florida, living with my grandparents. I spent a lot of time with my first cousins. Um, so they're half Trini or Trinidadian and half African American. They grew up, more American, hip hop, R&B, pop, rock, like Caribbean music, soca, chutney, Bollywood. Like the Bollywood thing was apparent because Indian movies and the culture was always around. But what about, like the chutney soca stuff? So that I didn't really get into until I was like 14, 15. And that was after when we moved to Kissimmee when I was 14. So, and that's telling because I don't think the east side of Orlando had like a big following at that time for like the West Indian community. So yeah, so moved to Point Siena. I went to Haines City Elementary. I lived there for like 3, 4 years. Then my grandparents, not my grandparents, then my parents both moved down and we got a house on the east side of Orlando, which was really cool because I had never been over there. There's a different scene than Point Siena. So it was cool. I grew up with I went to Cypress Springs Elementary, grew up with like African American, Spanish, white mostly. I was like, I don't know how to say that. I was like, what is it? Like unique. Like there was no West Indian people around, like Trinidadian, Guyanese, even Jamaican. Like it was very like minimal. And if there was, I'm pretty sure I was related to them if they were around because that's just how it went. So living in the East Side now, I still have my friend from third grade. She's been riding with me ever since. Um, and a few of other friends that I've known, I actually know like their family in the West Indian community now. There was like a few that were Trinidadian that I got to know, but it was pretty cool. And the neighborhood we lived in, I was 7 when we moved. So the neighborhood we lived in was a brand new neighborhood. And there was other families, like other neighbors around that my dad really became really close friends with. Even to the day he died, people were still, remembering him. My dad made an impact on a lot of people. So it was interesting. Mm. And then, grew up on the east side. My dad was into computer science, computer engineering. He actually did like the Everest ride at Animal Kingdom. He did like a lot of the theme park stuff, like the animatronics, and he would travel. He would travel and go other places and train and enhance his stuff with his work. And during one of his times when he was traveling, my mom thought that it was a good idea to be closer to his side of the family who were living in Point Siena. So she decided to move us from the east side of Orlando, the east side of Orlando, to Kissimmee, specifically BVO, Osceola Parkway. That was a that was like a culture shock because I went from like white, white African American, a little bit of Spanish, a little touch of Spanish here and there, Asian, not Indian Asian, like Chinese, kind of Korean Asian type of people, to BVL, Osceola Parkway. I went to Parkway Middle School where it was predominantly Spanish. Every type of Spanish you could think of is every type of Spanish that I went to school with. And they think that I don't know what they be saying sometimes, but they were, they get into talking, and if you pay attention, you could catch on to stuff. So even to this day, I could kind of read between the lines when people are talking Spanish around me. It's kind of funny because they think I don't know what they're saying, but I get the gist. So predominantly, Spanish. Grew up around them. Then went to Osceola High School in Kissimmee, which I went there from freshman year to junior year. And that was like all new stomping ground. Like Osceola High School was like the east side of Orlando, like not very much Spanish, predominantly African American and white, and a little bit of Spanish. You had some Asian, but a little touch more of Indian people that weren't families, like the people that I could actually be friends with. And freshman year, I actually met my sister-in-law, Sarah, and we became friends ever since then. If you guys check out our Two Ring Circus YouTube channel, I actually have videos talking like more in detail about how we met and how we're still around with each other nowadays and how we became sister-in-laws. So that was kind of like that's kind of like a extra thing you guys can go look at. It's Two Ringed Circus on YouTube. So yeah, so met Sarah at Osceola High. We're friends ever since because she had curry chicken at school. And from what I just told you guys, like I didn't come from the culture at any of my schools or knowing anybody like myself at school. So to have Sarah bring curry chicken, I was like, bet I'm gonna ask her for some and I'm gonna make a friend. Because I knew from that point, like I knew from that point I would end up knowing people because I asked her for her curry chicken and then we became friends. Kind of funny how that kind of happened in that way. And then sophomore year was cool. Junior year was when my dad passed. So when he passed, he died at our house and it was very scary to live there after he passed. So we decided to move. And when we moved to another place in Kissimmee, but then my zone school at that time was Gateway High, home of the Panthers. And that's where I ended up graduating. But it was kind of like going back in time because when I left Parkway Middle School, all of those kids went to Gateway. They didn't go to Osceola because Osceola was a different zone school. So I had the option of, I had known these people. It was a good and bad because if I had anybody that didn't like me at Parkway, I definitely ran back into them at Gateway. I definitely ran back into them at Gateway if they didn't like me at Parkway. So it was kind of like a good and bad. But going back to Gateway, I didn't go to prom. After I got back to Gateway, I was a different person because when my dad died, I was just a different person. I just had went through a very shocking, traumatic experience, not knowing how to cope with it, how to deal with it. And, that's just what had happened. So didn't go to prom, didn't go and do like any of like the senior stuff, just wasn't into it. I almost didn't graduate. Osceola High failed me for two classes that were important for graduation back then because I had missed 3 weeks of school. Well, I had to fight that obviously because I couldn't predict how long. My dad's funeral had over 300 people, and we had a wake at my house for 3 weeks. So for 3 consecutive weeks, I had people flying in and out, staying at my home, supporting us, helping us, and then leaving. So I had to be there for my mom and my brothers. I'm the oldest. We just didn't know what was going on. So school was not my priority. Like my family was completely. So they almost failed me, which was messed up. But I ended up doing everything I had to do. I ended up passing. I ended up, you know, doing everything that I needed to do to graduate. And I graduated in 2010 with my high school diploma. I was very proud of myself. I didn't even think that I could do it. And, a lot of people don't get to sometimes. They end up getting their GED. So I was very grateful that I had that opportunity to get mine. So now, graduated high school, college, I was always told I had to go to college. My mom currently has her PhD. At that time, I believe she was doing her bachelor's, and then she went on to get a double master's and then now her PhD. So going to college was not like a not option. Like I had to go to college. I had to decide what I wanted to do. I had to pick a school. I had to do something. And that was kind of like my mom's stipulations. Like if you lived with her, you kind of had to go to school or you needed to get a job and you worked. So I did both. I had my job because it was, when my dad was around, I mean, and I'm 17 when he died, but when my dad was around, he was strict. I mean, he was fun, but he was strict and he had certain ways he liked things done. When he was no longer around, it's like that net is no longer there restricting you or holding you back from doing things. So I was excited. I'm like, yeah, I'll go get a job because I was never told I had to. So now that I was never told I had to get a job. So now that I did go out and get a job, it was cool. I was like, bet I'm making money. I don't need to ask my mom for anything. I can go out and do what I want. Like I was getting a dose of being an adult, which was amazing. But then at the same time, it's like my school. I didn't really take school serious. I didn't even know what I wanted to do at 17, 18. I graduated at 18. So I didn't even have any idea what I wanted to do. But I did enroll in Valencia and I did take some classes. I enrolled at Seminole State College, took some classes in computer science, just trying different things. And I did general studies, but never, anything specific. So eventually I stopped going to college. After when I turned 19, I met my now husband and I had completely stopped schooling and I just focused on working and trying to make money and hustling. But then I also partied a lot. When I was 19, that's when we got into the West Indian Caribbean scene after I had met my husband. W- So during that time before I met him, that 2 year window, I got like 12 tattoos. I was hanging out. I had now like dipped my toes into the West Indian community. I had now dipped my toes in the West Indian community. So it was interesting because now I'm partying a lot more on the weekends. I'm experiencing different things. During that 2 year window, I got probably like 12 tattoos, which I have like 14 now, and I still want more. But, for that 2 hour window, that was kind of insane. So, partying or whatever, and then getting to know people. Nobody in the Caribbean scene knew who I was. I was like fresh meat out there. So it was interesting for me too. But then I ended up meeting my husband through my sister-in-law because she's married to his brother. They were together first. And that opened up a whole new avenue because he had known. 100 million in West Indian people. He has like 100 million cousins in Orlando and all over Florida and New York. So it's like my husband knew a lot of people too. So that kind of helped me get more into the Caribbean scene. He was DJing at that time. We were doing Caribbean promotions with a team and with the largest team in Orlando, by the way, who doesn't exist anymore, but they were running things at the time. And we learned that way. Being with that team kind of gave me privilege because took I took note of the owners of the group at the time. It was a couple, and we looked up to them. We learned from them. We were friends with them. We grew to really, really appreciate and respect them. Even to this day, they help us out as much as they can when we ask for it. And that's a blessing in disguise people don't appreciate. So, learning from them, they didn't just tell us to put a party or didn't just have us post a flyer or do all that footwork. They involved us. They let us meet people, owners. So they let us meet people too. They weren't just making us do like all the footwork. They introduced us to those important people that kind of put us in position. We got to see how they talk to people, what kind of deals they made. So we took like a lot of lessons from them. Well, because of that, I decided to go and get my bachelor's. Forget my associates. I didn't even go for my associates. I went for my bachelor's in business and I specialized in marketing. I took those extra classes in marketing to get my bachelor's degree. So I was excited because now I had a career path that I was interested in, I had experience in, and I had a passion for because I didn't know what my skill set was. I didn't know what I would be good at. So this was like a great starting point for me. And, learning from that team at that time was the best thing that could have happened to set me on the right path of where I am now. So we'll talk about where I am now, but just to get the foundation work done. And we'll talk about where I came from and like what I'm doing now, but this is the foundation. This is, the important stuff. So getting into the promotions and the team and meeting my husband and meeting a lot of people, did that for like 5 years consistently. Then in 2016, I got pregnant with Nathan, and we ended up having him 2017. Being a high risk first time parent with that pregnancy, that's a whole nother story that I can go into about being a first time parent and what it's like dealing with a medical child. I think I will. I'll go into that because parents nowadays, they don't know about the resources they have. If people don't speak to you, then you don't know what's out there. And people are afraid to ask questions. I don't think there's enough family advocates at the hospital that people trust because they're always thinking, oh, are they working with the hospital? Are they social workers? Because I know I thought like that. I didn't want anybody from the hospital helping me because I'm like, are you like looking into my life to see if I'm a good or bad parent? Like, are you trying to take Nathan away from me? I didn't know. I was young. So I feel like I'll go into that. More people need some more information on the actual behind the scenes of what happened with Nathan, like how I dealt with that and my husband and my family, because everybody was included. So, go on and have my son. And I think I'll end it at that for now because after I had Nathan, my life changed tremendously. He was my blessing in disguise. He was the person that I didn't know I needed until I had him. And now I don't know what I could do without him. So I think I'll wrap up, and I don't know what I would do without him. So I think I'll wrap up here. You guys got a good first, background about me, about, where I was born, where I moved around to. That's kind of why I know a lot of people too. Um, my parents, and I'll backtrack a little. As I got older, I also went through a lot of issues with my parents. Um, they had separation issues, and every time they separated, we moved, and every time they got back together, we moved. So it just shows you. how telling that is and how I know so much people because I had no choice but to start over in multiple places. And I take that as a learning lesson now. It's a part of my story. I don't have any hate. I'm not envious. I don't have any regret. I think my parents did the best that they could with what they had. And if my mom didn't do what she did back then, I don't know where we would be now. So I take all of this as a lesson. So I'm gonna wrap up this episode. I want you guys to follow me on Spotify, like all of my pages, all of my channels, because you'll get to hear a little piece of everybody. I will bring Sarah on from a two ring circus. I will bring Danny. I will bring Sarah on. I will bring Danny on from Ram Squad. I will bring my business friend Nicole, who I do taxes with. I'm gonna get you guys a lot of fun out here. So I appreciate everybody for listening. I'm open to feedback and comments. If I sound crazy, if I'm saying too much, if I'm rambling, if I'm off topic, let me know. I'm open to feedback. This is a platform for me to kind of like vent. I always vent to the wrong people, and then people end up knowing all my business. So I'm gonna vent to the right place where I have control over it and I can dictate the narrative. So this has been Pages in Perspective. Navi out.